Admiral Kethavar stood before the massive viewing screen on his flagship, watching the small blue planet that hung in the darkness of space like a tiny jewel. Earth, the humans called it, such a simple name for what would soon become another conquered world in the great Zephyrian collective. His scaled hands moved across the control panel as he studied the data flowing across multiple displays. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, covered in swirling white clouds and vast blue oceans. The third planet from a yellow star in what the humans had named the Sol system. Kethavar had conquered 47 worlds in his long career, and they all looked beautiful from space before the collective claimed them. Beauty meant nothing when faced with the might of superior technology and overwhelming force. Commander Zilthak entered the bridge with urgent steps, carrying a data tablet filled with intelligence reports about the human species. His younger officer had proven useful in previous campaigns, showing both loyalty and efficiency in gathering information about enemy capabilities. "Admiral, we have completed our analysis of the human military forces," Zilthak announced, his voice carrying the confidence that came from centuries of easy victories. "Tell me what we face," Kethavar replied, though he already knew the answer would be disappointing. The scout ships had been watching Earth for months, and every report painted the same picture of a primitive civilization barely capable of defending itself against a determined invasion force. Zilthak activated his tablet and began reading from the detailed assessments. The humans possess 12 operational warships of questionable design and limited capabilities. Their weapons technology appears to be based on crude kinetic projectiles and primitive energy beams. Most interesting, Admiral, is that they have not achieved true unity as a species. The planet remains divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, many of which maintain hostile relationships with their neighbors. This last detail brought a satisfied hiss from Kethavar's throat. Divided species always fell quickly to the collective's unified assault. When a planet's defenders spent as much time fighting each other as they did preparing for external threats, conquest became merely a matter of scheduling rather than strategy. Their space-based defenses? Minimal, Admiral. A handful of orbital stations around their moon and several monitoring posts scattered throughout their star system. Nothing that would pose a significant threat to even our smallest battle groups. Our preliminary bombardment will eliminate these installations within the first hour of engagement. Kethavar turned away from the viewing screen and walked to his command chair, a massive throne-like structure that had carried him through decades of successful campaigns. The leather-like material had been taken from his first conquered world, a reminder of how far the collective had spread across the galaxy. He settled into the familiar seat and considered the standard protocol for dealing with primitive civilizations. "Prepare the ultimatum transmission," he ordered. Standard terms. "Complete surrender within 72 of their local time units, followed by immediate evacuation of all military personnel and government officials. Resource extraction teams will begin operations once the population has been relocated to appropriate work facilities." "Yes, Admiral," Zilthak responded, already moving toward the communications station. "Should we include the customary demonstration of our capabilities?" "Of course. Select one of their outer mining facilities, something visible but unoccupied. We want them to understand our power without unnecessarily reducing the available workforce." Meanwhile, millions of miles away, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of Luna Defense Station, monitoring the routine traffic that moved between Earth and its various orbital installations. The 42-year-old officer had spent most of his career watching empty space, preparing for threats that military analysts insisted would never come. Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel only recently, and contact with alien civilizations remained theoretical rather than practical. The communication alert that suddenly filled his command center changed everything. Morrison watched in growing alarm as his screens filled with an incoming transmission of impossible clarity and obvious alien origin. The message began with mathematical sequences that proved intelligence, followed by crude images that demonstrated the sender's peaceful intentions, and finally concluded with language that had been learned from monitoring Earth's radio transmissions. "People of Earth," the alien voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "I am Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Collective. Your world has been selected for integration into our galactic civilization. You have 72 hours to surrender all military forces and prepare for peaceful occupation. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species. To demonstrate their capabilities, The aliens destroyed an unmanned asteroid mining station near Jupiter, with a single blast of energy that vaporized the entire facility in seconds. The demonstration was visible to every telescope and monitoring station in the solar system, leaving no doubt about the reality of the threat or the power behind it. Morrison immediately activated emergency protocols, sending the alien message to every military installation on Earth and Luna. Within minutes, his communication board lit up with incoming calls from generals, presidents, prime ministers, and defense coordinators across the planet. The human race had just received its first contact with alien intelligence, and it had come in the form of a death sentence. President Helen Carter convened an emergency session of the World Defense Council within 6 hours of receiving the transmission. Representatives from every major nation gathered in the secure bunker beneath Geneva, their faces reflecting the gravity of humanity's situation. General Paul Rodriguez of the Combined Earth Defense Force presented their military assessment with brutal honesty. "We are outmatched in every measurable category," Rodriguez announced to the assembled leaders. "Our 12 operational warships represent the pinnacle of human military technology, but they would be classified as primitive by any standard that could produce the weapon we witnessed, destroying the mining station. Our nuclear arsenal represents our most powerful weapons, but delivery systems would be useless against an enemy possessing faster-than-light travel and energy shields." Dr. Lisa Bennett, Earth's leading expert in xenobiology and alien communication, had been analyzing the collective's transmission since its arrival. Her findings painted an even darker picture of humanity's situation. The historical data embedded in their message indicates this collective has conquered hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. Their expansion has continued uninterrupted for over 8 centuries. Every civilization they have encountered has either surrendered immediately or been eliminated within weeks of first contact. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity faced an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority, vast military experience, and a perfect record of success against species far more advanced than Earth's current civilization. The 72-hour deadline seemed more like a formality than a genuine opportunity for negotiation. But Captain Morrison had noticed something in the alien fleet's behavior that troubled him more than their obvious military superiority. The enemy ships maintained significant distance from Earth, using long-range sensors instead of close observation. Their intelligence gathering seemed thorough but indirect, as if they preferred to study their opponents from a safe distance rather than risk direct confrontation. For a species with such advanced technology and military success, they seemed remarkably cautious about approaching their target. As the deadline approached, Morrison began to wonder if humanity's apparent weakness might be hiding strengths that even they didn't fully understand. The 72 hours passed without a single word of surrender from Earth. Admiral Kethvar expected this outcome, though he found the human silence somewhat puzzling. Most species at least attempted to negotiate or beg for mercy before accepting their fate. The humans had simply gone quiet, their military communications networks falling silent across all monitored frequencies. "Admiral, we are detecting massive launch signatures from the planet's surface," Commander Zilthak reported from his position at the sensor station. His voice carried a note of confusion as he studied the readings flowing across his displays. Multiple rocket launches from every major landmass. Primitive chemical propulsion systems carrying what appear to be nuclear warheads. Kethvar moved to examine the sensor data himself, his scaled fingers tracing the trajectory lines that showed dozens of human missiles climbing slowly toward space. The weapons were laughably primitive by collective standards, massive multi-stage rockets that burned crude chemical fuel to achieve orbital velocity. Each missile carried nuclear warheads that might have been devastating against ground targets but would be useless against ships protected by energy. "Shields and point defense systems, are they targeting our fleet?" Kethvar asked, though the trajectory lines clearly showed otherwise. The human missiles were heading toward various points throughout the solar system, seemingly aimed at empty space rather than the collective ships. "Negative, Admiral. The missiles appear to be targeting coordinates throughout their star system, asteroid clusters, planetary moons, and various points in the space between planets. It makes no tactical sense from any military doctrine we have encountered." Kethvar watched the primitive missiles crawling through space at speeds that would take hours to reach their destinations. The display almost amused him. After facing the collective's ultimatum, humanity's response was to waste their nuclear arsenal shooting at empty space. It confirmed everything his intelligence reports had suggested about human military incompetence. "Ignore the missiles," he ordered. "Begin our advance toward the planet. We will demonstrate proper military strategy to these primitives before accepting their inevitable surrender." The Zephyrian fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their advanced ships cutting through space with the grace and power that had conquered dozens of star systems. Kethvar felt the familiar satisfaction that came with the opening moves of a successful campaign. Victory would be achieved within hours, followed by the systematic occupation of another world for the glory of the collective. Commander Zilthak was preparing to broadcast the standard occupation protocols. When the first nuclear detonation occurred, the explosion appeared on their sensors as a brilliant flash of energy near a large asteroid cluster in the outer system. Then came the second detonation, followed by a third. Then dozens more as human nuclear weapons reached their mysterious targets throughout the solar system. "Admiral, we are detecting massive energy signatures across multiple locations," Zilthak announced, his voice now carrying genuine concern. "The nuclear detonations appear to be activating something. Multiple contacts emerging from concealment throughout the system." Kethvar stared at the tactical display as it transformed before his eyes. The empty space that had surrounded them moments before suddenly filled with contact markers as hidden installations revealed themselves across the solar system. Massive weapons platforms emerged from asteroid clusters where they had been perfectly camouflaged. Missile batteries rose from concealed positions on planetary moons. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive as mining equipment revealed secondary purposes. "This is impossible," Kethvar whispered, watching as the human trap closed around his fleet. "Our scouts surveyed this system for months. These installations were not here. But they had been there, hidden so perfectly that even the collective's advanced sensors had been fooled." Captain Morrison had revealed humanity's true strategy from his command post on Luna Defense Station. The nuclear weapons had not been aimed at the alien ships because they were never intended as weapons of war. They were activation keys for a defensive network that had been under construction for decades. "All stations report ready," Morrison announced over the secure communication network that linked every hidden installation throughout the solar system. "Commence Operation Asteroid Storm." The first railgun platform fired from its concealment within the asteroid belt, launching a tungsten projectile at nearly 20% of light speed. The kinetic energy release when it struck the lead collective ship was equivalent to a nuclear weapon, punching through energy shields and armor as if they were paper. The alien vessel disappeared in a ball of superheated plasma and debris. More platforms opened fire from concealed positions throughout the system. Railguns hidden in asteroid clusters launched streams of projectiles that struck the collective fleet like invisible hammers. Missile batteries concealed on the moons of Mars and Jupiter released swarms of fusion-powered interceptors that moved faster than anything the aliens had expected from human technology. The asteroid belt became a weapon itself as humanity's mining equipment revealed its dual purpose. Massive chunks of rock and metal were launched toward the alien fleet using the same systems that had been moving raw materials for decades. The projectiles moved slowly compared to the railgun rounds, but their size made them devastating when they found their targets. Dr. Lisa Bennett watched the battle unfold from her research station on Luna, analyzing the collective's communications as they tried to understand what was happening to them. Her xenobiology research had provided the key insight that made humanity's strategy possible. Every species the collective had conquered fought conventionally, matching ships against ships and technology against technology. None had ever weaponized an entire star system. "The aliens are transmitting on multiple frequencies," she reported to General Rodriguez at his command center deep beneath Earth's surface. "Their communications indicate complete surprise at our defensive capabilities. They appear to have no tactical doctrine for dealing with system-wide fortifications." Rodriguez smiled grimly as he coordinated the defense from his underground bunker. The hidden command center had been built specifically for this moment, connecting every defensive installation throughout the solar system into a single coordinated network. Humanity had spent 70 years preparing for this day, ever since their first deep space probes had detected signs of alien civilization in nearby star systems. "Phase 2. Activate," Rodriguez ordered, and the real surprise began. Every piece of space debris in the solar system that appeared to be natural was actually part of humanity's defensive network. Seemingly innocent asteroids split open to reveal missile launchers. Metal-rich meteoroids activated guidance systems that turned them into guided projectiles. Even the dust and small particles throughout the system carried microscopic sensors that provided targeting data for the larger weapons. Admiral Cathvar watched his fleet take devastating casualties as humans demonstrated a completely alien approach to warfare. The collective had always fought honorable battles between opposing fleets, with clear battle lines and established tactical doctrines. The humans fought like guerrilla warriors, using every piece of matter in their star system as a potential weapon. "Admiral, we have lost over 40% of our ships," Silthak reported, his voice tight with panic. "Our shields cannot protect against kinetic projectiles moving at these velocities." The humans appear to have been preparing this defense for decades. The collective's tactical computers had no answer for humanity's strategy. Their military doctrine assumed enemies would reveal themselves and fight directly. The concept of hiding an entire defensive network throughout a star system was beyond their experience. Every calculation showed that the human weapons were primitive, but their deployment was so unexpected that technological superiority meant nothing. "Order a fighting withdrawal," Cathvar commanded, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. For the first time in his career, he was retreating from a supposedly primitive enemy. "We will regroup beyond the range of their fixed installations and request reinforcements." But even the retreat proved dangerous, as humanity's weapons continued to track and target the fleeing ships. Hidden installations that had remained silent during the initial assault opened fire as the collective fleet passed within range. The humans had planned for every contingency, creating overlapping fields of fire that made escape as hazardous as advance. Captain Morrison coordinated the pursuit from Luna Defense Station, watching as humanity's patient preparation paid off in ways that exceeded their most optimistic projections. The aliens were retreating in disorder, their formation broken and their confidence shattered. But Morrison knew this was only the beginning. The collective would return with greater force, and humanity would need to be ready for the real war that was coming. As the surviving collective ships fled beyond the outer planets, Admiral Cathvar transmitted an emergency message to the core worlds of the Zephyrian Empire. The humans had proven far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and the collective's expansion had been stopped for the first time in centuries. High Admiral Mordeth arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, with the full might of the Zephyrian war machine behind him. 3,000 ships filled the darkness of space, ranging from massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planetary crusts to swarms of fighters designed to overwhelm any defense. This was the largest fleet the collective had assembled in over 2 centuries, brought together to crush a single primitive world that had dared to resist their expansion. The elderly commander studied the reports from Admiral Cathvar's defeated fleet with growing disbelief. A species that barely understood faster-than-light travel had destroyed nearly half of a collective battle group using hidden weapons and unconventional tactics. The humans had turned their entire star system into a trap, using strategies that violated every accepted principle of galactic warfare. "Prepare the devastator weapons," Mordeth ordered his subordinates. "We will not make the mistake of underestimating these creatures again. If they refuse to surrender, we will sterilize their entire system and eliminate any possibility of future resistance." Dr. Lisa Bennett intercepted the collective's communications from her research station on Luna. Her equipment enhanced with captured alien technology from the previous battle, the xenobiologist had become humanity's primary expert on alien psychology and military doctrine, and what she discovered in the enemy transmissions filled her with cold dread. "General Rodriguez, the aliens are not planning occupation this time," she reported over the secure communication channel. "They are bringing planet-killer weapons. Multiple Devastator-class ships capable of destroying Earth's sun itself. This is no longer about conquest. They intend complete annihilation." General Rodriguez received the intelligence report in his underground command center, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the massive alien fleet approaching from the outer system. The number of enemy ships far exceeded humanity's most pessimistic projections, and the presence of planet-killing weapons changed the strategic situation completely. "Activate Protocol Swarm," Rodriguez ordered, his voice calm despite the magnitude of the threat facing Earth. "Authorization Code Omega 77. All civilian assets are now military assets. Every human being in the solar system is now a combatant. Across the solar system, seemingly innocent civilian installations began revealing their true nature. Mining colonies that appeared to be commercial operations activated hidden weapon systems and defensive barriers. Scientific research stations throughout the asteroid belt powered up military-grade sensor arrays and communication networks. Orbital manufacturing facilities around Jupiter and Saturn opened concealed hangar bays filled with military hardware. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral after his success in the first engagement, coordinated humanity's response from the captured collective vessel that had become his flagship. The alien ship had been rapidly modified with human technology, creating a hybrid command vessel that combined the best of both civilizations' capabilities. The alien fleet is maintaining formation at the edge of the system. Morrison reported to the Combined Defense Command. They appear to be conducting detailed scans before advancing. Our intelligence suggests they are trying to locate all our hidden installations before beginning their assault. But the aliens could not scan for what they could not imagine. Humanity's true defensive capability was not hidden in secret installations or concealed weapon platforms. It was hidden in plain sight, scattered throughout the solar system in the form of millions of civilian spacecraft that appeared to be engaged in routine commercial and scientific activities. President Helen Carter addressed the people of Earth from the secure bunker beneath Geneva. Her words broadcast throughout the solar system on every communication frequency. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, the time has come to reveal the truth about our civilization. Every one of you has trained for this moment. Every civilian vessel, every mining ship, every research probe, every transport has been designed with military capability. We are not just a planet under attack. We are a species at war. The revelation spread through human settlements across the solar system as ordinary civilians activated military protocols they had trained for their entire lives. Cargo pilot Amy Foster powered up the hidden weapon systems in her transport ship, transforming the vessel from a peaceful merchant craft into a fast attack fighter. Mining engineer Tony Walsh activated the military conversion systems in his asteroid processing facility, revealing weapon fabrication capabilities that had been hidden beneath industrial equipment. Throughout the solar system, millions of humans prepared for battle using skills they had practiced in secret since childhood. The collective had studied human military forces and found them wanting, but they had never analyzed human civilian capabilities. Every human had received basic military training disguised as educational programs. Every civilian job included combat applications that were never officially acknowledged. The battle began when the collective fleet finally advanced into the inner solar system, confident that their overwhelming numbers and superior technology would crush any resistance. High Admiral Mordeth expected to face the same fixed installations that had troubled Kethvar's forces, planning to use long-range bombardment to eliminate the threats before closing for the final assault. Instead, the aliens found themselves facing something unprecedented in galactic warfare. As their fleet moved toward Earth, seemingly empty space around them suddenly filled with millions of small craft emerging from every planet, moon, asteroid, and space station in the system. The human response was not a military formation, but a swarm of individual fighters, each piloted by someone fighting to protect their home. The collective's massive capital ships had been designed to engage other dreadnoughts in traditional fleet actions. Their weapons and defensive systems were optimized for fighting large targets at extreme range, not for dealing with swarms of tiny attackers moving in unpredictable patterns. Human fighters slipped through defensive grids that had never been tested. Against such unconventional tactics, Amy Foster piloted her converted transport in a desperate attack run against a collective dreadnought, using civilian cargo handling equipment that had been secretly modified for military use. Her ship carried fusion bombs disguised as mining charges, weapons that could devastate an enemy vessel if delivered at close range. She spoke to her family over the communication system as she lined up her attack, knowing that survival was unlikely, but that her sacrifice might save millions of others. Tony Walsh led a squadron of converted mining ships against another alien formation, using industrial cutting tools that had been enhanced with military targeting systems. The miners fought with the desperation of people defending their homes, employing tactics that no military academy had ever taught, because they came from the experience of working in the dangerous environment of space, the collective found themselves fighting not an army, but an entire civilization that had collectively decided to go to war. Human pilots sacrificed their ships and lives to plant explosives inside alien hulls. Civilian crews used their vessels as guided missiles, ramming enemy ships at incredible velocities. Ordinary people became heroes in moments of desperate combat that decided the fate of their species. High Admiral Mordeth watched his supposedly invincible fleet take catastrophic casualties from an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. The humans attacked when facing overwhelming odds instead of retreating. They spent lives freely to achieve tactical advantages instead of preserving their forces for future battles. They fought with an intensity and creativity that defied all military logic. "Sir, we have lost over 800 ships," his tactical officer reported with growing panic. "The humans are using civilian vessels as weapons. Every spacecraft in their system appears to be capable of military action. Our tactical computers cannot predict their movements because they are not following any recognized combat doctrine." Dr. Bennett analyzed the alien communications from her position aboard a converted research vessel, using captured enemy equipment to monitor collective command frequencies. The xenobiologist had discovered that the aliens' rigid military hierarchy was becoming a liability when faced with humanity's chaotic but effective resistance. "The aliens are having trouble adapting to our tactics," she reported to Admiral Morrison over the secure network. "Their command structure is too centralized to respond quickly to our individual initiatives. They keep trying to identify our overall strategy when we are actually fighting thousands of separate battles simultaneously." The truth about human warfare was finally being revealed to the galaxy. Humanity did not fight as a unified military force following orders from Central Command. They fought as individuals and small groups, each making independent decisions based on local conditions and personal initiative. The collective's advanced tactical computers could not predict or counter such behavior because it was fundamentally different from every military doctrine they had encountered. As the battle raged throughout the solar system, it became clear that the collective's numerical superiority meant nothing against an enemy that refused to be defeated by conventional means. News of humanity's resistance spread across the galaxy faster than the collective had ever imagined possible. For the first time in over 8 centuries, their expansion had been stopped completely. Reports filtered through hidden communication networks as species across dozens of star systems learned that the supposedly invincible Zephyrian fleet was being defeated by a primitive civilization that had barely achieved interstellar travel. On the collective's core world of Zephyr Prime, the High Council convened an emergency session to address the unprecedented crisis. Counselor Vextar reviewed battle reports that seemed impossible, according to every military doctrine the collective had developed. The humans had not only survived the full assault of their largest fleet, but had actually pushed the alien forces back beyond the orbit of their outer planets. "This cannot be accurate," Vextar declared, his scaled hands trembling as he examined the casualty figures. "High Admiral Mordeth commands our finest ships and most experienced crews. These humans possess no technology superior to our own. How can they achieve such results against overwhelming force?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Captured collective personnel who had been rescued from destroyed ships brought disturbing reports about human combat behavior. The aliens had expected to face conventional military forces following established tactical doctrines. Instead, they encountered an entire species that fought with strategies no civilized race had ever employed. Dr. Lisa Bennett intercepted communications between collective worlds from her mobile laboratory aboard a converted research vessel. Her equipment, enhanced with captured alien technology, revealed something remarkable happening throughout the galaxy. Other species that had been conquered by the collective were beginning to rebel. Inspired by humanity's example, General Rodriguez, "We are detecting uprising signatures on at least 12 collective-controlled worlds," Bennett reported over the secure quantum communication network. "Species that surrendered decades ago are now using guerrilla tactics similar to our own resistance methods. The myth of collective invincibility has been broken." General Rodriguez coordinated humanity's response from his command center, now relocated to a mobile platform hidden in the asteroid belt. The discovery that other species were rebelling opened new strategic possibilities that could change the course of the entire war. Earth's resistance had become more than a fight for survival. It had become a catalyst for galactic revolution. Captain Linda Hayes commanded the first human strike force to operate beyond the solar system, leading a small fleet of modified civilian vessels toward collective supply lines in nearby star systems. Her mission was not to hold territory but to inspire other species to join the growing rebellion against their oppressors. Remember, we are not conquerors. Hayes addressed her diverse crew of volunteers over the ship's communication system. We are liberators. Every world we help free sends a message throughout the galaxy that resistance is possible. Show them that the collective can be beaten. The human strike forces employed the same unconventional tactics that had proven so effective in defending Earth. They avoided direct confrontation with major, collective fleets, instead targeting supply convoys, communication relays, and isolated outposts. Each successful raid demonstrated that the aliens could be defeated, encouraging local populations to begin their own resistance movements. Admiral Morrison established contact with resistance groups throughout collective space, sharing tactical innovations and strategic insights that had proven effective against alien forces. Humanity began providing technical assistance to other species, showing them how to convert civilian infrastructure for military purposes and how to use unconventional warfare against superior technology. The war entered a new phase as rebellions erupted across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered generations ago rediscovered their courage and began fighting for freedom. The Kepler system saw its first uprising in 50 years when the aquatic Delari used their underwater cities to launch surprise attacks against collective occupation forces. The mining colonies of the Vega sector turned their industrial equipment into weapons, just as humans had done in their own system. President Carter addressed the United Nations in a speech that was broadcast throughout the galaxy, translated into dozens of alien languages by captured collective communication equipment. Her words reached oppressed populations on worlds the collective had controlled for centuries, carrying a message of hope that many species had forgotten was possible. We fight not for conquest or revenge, Carter declared, her voice carrying across interstellar space to reach ears and auditory organs of every description. We fight for the principle that no species should bow to tyrants. Every sentient being deserves the freedom to determine their own destiny. Earth stands with all who choose resistance over submission. The collective faced something they had never encountered in their long history of expansion. Instead of fighting a single planet or star system, they now faced a galaxy-wide uprising that challenged their fundamental assumptions about power and control. Their rigid command structure, which had been so effective when dealing with isolated resistance, became a liability when confronting dozens of separate rebellions simultaneously. Admiral Mordeth found his forces stretched across multiple star systems as emergency requests for reinforcements arrived from collective commanders throughout their territory. The humans had not simply defended their home world. They had somehow transformed local resistance into a coordinated, galactic movement that threatened the very foundation of collective civilization. Dr. Bennett's research revealed the psychological warfare aspects of humanity's strategy. By proving that the collective could be defeated, Earth had shattered the fear that kept conquered species in line. The aliens' greatest weapon had always been the belief that resistance was futile. Once that belief was broken, their entire empire became vulnerable to internal collapse. The collective's strength was never just their technology or military force. Bennett explained to the Combined Defense Command during a strategic planning session. Their real power came from the acceptance of their victims. Every species they conquered believed that submission was the only alternative to extinction. We proved that belief was wrong. The rebellion spread as species throughout the galaxy adopted human tactics and adapted them to their own capabilities. The crystalline Zeta shared technical information through quantum resonance networks that the collective could not intercept. The gas giant dwellers of the Rigel system used their atmospheric manipulation abilities to create weapons the aliens had never imagined. Each species contributed unique capabilities to the growing resistance movement. But the collective's response was swift and terrible. High Admiral Mordeth, faced with the collapse of their galactic empire, made a desperate decision that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Unable to defeat humanity through conventional warfare, he authorized the deployment of the collective's most feared weapon. The Starkiller had been developed during the early days of collective expansion as the ultimate deterrent against resistance. The massive device could destabilize a star, causing it to collapse or explode and destroying every planet in the target system. It had never been used, but its existence had prevented rebellions on dozens of worlds where populations knew that resistance meant the annihilation of their entire species. Dr. Bennett detected the massive energy signatures building within the collective's remaining fleet as they prepared their ultimate weapon. Her analysis revealed the terrifying truth about what the aliens planned to do. If they could not conquer Earth, they would destroy it completely as an example to every other species considering rebellion. All human forces. This is Priority Alpha Emergency. Bennett broadcast on all military frequencies. The collective is preparing to destroy our sun. Estimated time to deployment is less than 72 hours. This is not a drill. They intend to eliminate our entire solar system. The revelation sent shockwaves through human forces throughout the galaxy as they realized the true cost of their resistance. The collective was prepared to commit genocide on an unprecedented scale rather than accept defeat. The war had become a race against time, with the survival of Earth and the future of galactic freedom hanging in the balance. Admiral Morrison coordinated humanity's desperate response from his command ship. Knowing that the next few days would determine whether their struggle for freedom would inspire the galaxy or serve as a warning about the price of resistance, the collective had revealed their willingness to destroy entire star systems. But humanity was about to reveal something even more shocking about their own nature and capabilities. The final confrontation began not with weapons and explosions, but with revelations that would change the understanding of both species forever. As the collective's Star Killer charged its devastating weapon systems, Dr. Lisa Bennett made a discovery that transformed the entire conflict from a war of destruction into a struggle for salvation. Deep within captured collective databases, Bennett uncovered the truth that High Admiral Mordeth and his commanders had hidden from their own people for generations. The Zephyrian collective was not expanding across the galaxy out of greed or conquest. They were fleeing from a plague of their own creation, a biological weapon that had backfired during an ancient civil war and was slowly consuming their original homeworlds. General Rodriguez, I have found something that changes everything, Bennett reported from her mobile laboratory as she analyzed the classified collective files. Their expansion is not about conquest. It is about survival. Their homeworlds are dying from a plague they created centuries ago. Every species they have conquered has been relocated to make room for collective refugees fleeing the contamination. The discovery explained the collective's desperate behavior and rigid military doctrine. They were not empire builders but refugees with superior technology, using their military might to claim new worlds because their original civilization was slowly dying. The revelation recast every previous battle in a new light and offered possibilities that neither side had previously considered. Admiral Morrison coordinated humanity's response to the Star Killer threat while processing this new intelligence. The massive alien weapon continued charging its systems, preparing to destroy Earth's sun in less than 24 hours. But Bennett's discovery suggested that there might be an alternative to mutual annihilation, if humanity could prove their worth as allies rather than enemies. Captain Linda. Hayes led a desperate mission deep into collective space, using captured alien technology to reach the quarantine zones where the original Zephyrian plague still raged unchecked. Her small fleet of modified human ships carried medical equipment and research teams led by Dr. Chris Murphy, Earth's leading expert in biological warfare countermeasures. The plague is definitely artificial, Murphy reported as his team analyzed samples from the contaminated collective worlds. Engineered biological weapon designed to target specific genetic markers in Zephyrian physiology. But the creators made a critical error. The weapon adapted and mutated beyond their control, becoming something that their medical technology cannot cure. Dr. Bennett worked frantically to synthesize a cure using humanity's unique biological diversity and medical knowledge. Earth's challenging environment had forced human evolution to develop incredibly adaptable immune systems and genetic structures that could potentially provide the key to stopping the collective's plague. Human genetic material contains sequences that are naturally resistant to the plague organism, Bennett explained to the emergency medical team working aboard her research vessel. Our evolutionary history has given us biological tools that the collective lacks. We can synthesize a cure, but we need time that we do not have. Meanwhile, the political situation throughout the galaxy continued to evolve as news of the Star Killer spread to every inhabited world. Species that had remained neutral in the conflict between humanity and the collective began choosing sides as they realized the implications of the alien superweapon. If the collective was willing to destroy entire star systems, no world in the galaxy was safe from their desperate expansion. President Carter attempted direct communication with High Admiral Mordeth, hoping to negotiate a solution before the Star Killer completed its charging sequence. The conversation took place over open channels, broadcast throughout the galaxy so that every species could hear the exchange between the two civilizations. Admiral Mordeth, we know about the plague affecting your worlds, Carter began, her voice carrying across interstellar space to reach the alien commander. Humanity offers our assistance in developing a cure. Our medical technology may provide solutions that your science has not considered. There is no need for further destruction, when both our species could benefit from cooperation. Mordeth's response revealed the depth of desperation that had driven collective expansion for centuries. You offer assistance to the species that has conquered your neighbors and threatened your world? Your medical primitives believe they can solve problems that have challenged our greatest scientists for generations? This is either remarkable foolishness or unprecedented arrogance. It is hope, Carter replied simply, something that your people seem to have lost during centuries of running from a problem instead of solving it. Humanity chooses to stand and fight against impossible odds. Perhaps that perspective is exactly what your scientists need to find a cure for the plague. The exchange was interrupted by an emergency transmission from Captain Hayes, broadcasting from deep within the quarantine zone of collective space. Her medical teams had made a breakthrough that validated humanity's offer of assistance in ways that neither species had expected. All stations. This is Captain Hayes, she announced over communication channels that reached both human and collective forces. Dr. Murphy's team has successfully synthesized a cure for the Zephyrian plague, using human genetic material, and captured collective medical technology. The cure is effective and can be mass-produced using standard medical facilities. The announcement sent shockwaves through both fleets as the implications became clear. Humanity had solved in hours a problem that had plagued collective civilization for centuries. The Star Killer's weapon systems continued charging, but Mordeth found himself facing a choice between destroying the species that offered salvation and accepting help from enemies who had proven their superiority in ways that extended far beyond military capability. This is impossible, Mordeth declared, but his voice carried doubt rather than conviction. Your species lacks the scientific knowledge to understand diseases that our greatest minds could not cure. You are attempting to deceive us into lowering our defenses. Dr. Bennett responded by transmitting the complete genetic sequence of the cure, along with detailed medical data that proved its effectiveness. The information was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching collective medical personnel throughout their fleet and providing independent verification of humanity's breakthrough. The moment of decision arrived as the Star Killer reached critical charge levels. Admiral Morrison led a final desperate assault on the massive weapon while broadcasting the cure's formula to every ship in both fleets. His flagship rammed the Star Killer's core systems in a sacrificial attack that disrupted the weapon but cost Morrison his life. In the chaos following the Star Killer's destruction, young collective Captain Zelmari made a decision that would determine the future of both species. She had been questioning the war since the first reports of human resistance, and Morrison's sacrifice while offering salvation to his enemies convinced her that the conflict had to end. All collective forces. This is Captain Zelmari assuming command, she announced after arresting High Admiral Mordeth and his senior staff. The war is over. Humanity has offered us salvation, and we will accept their gift with the gratitude and respect they have earned. Through their courage and sacrifice, Galaxy watched as two species that had been locked in mortal combat transformed their relationship into partnership within hours. The cure for the collective plague was distributed freely to every affected world, while human medical teams worked alongside Zephyrian scientists to treat populations that had suffered for centuries. Dr. Bennett's final analysis revealed the true significance of humanity's victory. Earth's greatest weapon had never been their military technology or tactical innovations. It was their fundamental belief that cooperation and compassion were more powerful than conquest and domination. This philosophy, demonstrated through their actions during the darkest moments of the war, had inspired permanent change throughout the galaxy. 5 years later, Earth served as the capital of a new galactic federation, based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. Former collective worlds worked alongside humanity and dozens of liberated species to explore the galaxy peacefully. The cure for the Zephyrian plague had been completely successful, transforming the former conquerors into valued partners in scientific and cultural exchange. Captain Hayes, now serving as humanity's first galactic ambassador, reflected on the transformation that had occurred since the day alien ships first appeared in Earth's sky. The galaxy had learned that humanity's true strength came not from their weapons or tactics, but from their absolute refusal to accept that might makes right. The memorial to Admiral Morrison on Luna bore an inscription written in the languages of dozens of species, all of whom had gained their freedom through his sacrifice and the courage of the human race. The simple words captured the essence of humanity's gift to the galaxy. Here stood those who proved that freedom is worth any price, and that even the smallest species can change. The course of history, the war that began with the collective's ultimatum, had ended with the discovery that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to protect what you believe in.